Now, we save the best for last. Hello, Brooklyn. Thanks for sticking around, everyone, and thank you, candidates, for being willing to close us out. I know it's a little late. Let's get right to it. Reintroduce myself real quick. My name is Robert. I am LIT's Director of Election Engagement. Thank you to all of our panelists for being here. As we begin our panels tonight, please tell us your name, what district you're running in, and your 5 words or less why you're running. We'll start with Lincoln Restler.
Hi, my name is Lincoln Restler. I am running in Brooklyn's 33rd Council District, and the 5 words I'm running are fight like hell for Brooklyn.
Elizabeth Adams.
Hi, Elizabeth Adams. Great to be with you all. I'm running for the 33rd District in Brooklyn, and I am running because I'm bringing creative approaches for livable communities.
April Samboun.
Hi, I'm April Samboun, and I'm running in City Council's 33rd District, and I'm running to represent every voice and boost the economy.
Crystal Hudson.
Hi there, I'm Crystal Hudson. I'm running for City Council in the 35th District in Brooklyn, and I'm running to make government more accessible for more people. Thank you.
Curtis Harris. Oh, not here, excuse me. Darma Diaz.
Good evening, Darma Diaz, 37 Councilmatic District. I'm seeking to run again, continue to be the voice. Funding, safety, housing, and education is what I'm running on.
Justin Krebs.
Hey there, Justin Krebs, 39th District. Together we can do this.
Shahana Hanif.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shahana Hanif. I'm running in Brooklyn's 39th District. No worries, Robert. I'm running to prioritize women, workers, and education.
Thank you. Apologize about that. Rita Joseph.
Good evening. My name is Rita Joseph. I'm running for the 40th Council District, and I'm running for housing, social justice, and education.
Excellent. Brandon West.
Hi, I'm Brandon West. I'm running for City Council District 39, and I'm running for office to center justice in our budget.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everyone. We're going to start off with a video question from a Brooklyn-based artist, and they have a great political question for you.
Hi, I'm Yolanda Kay. I'm an actor, writer, poet, neo-futurist in New York City. And I lost all of my day jobs and a play that I was in a year ago. I lost all of my streams of income within 5 days and frightened me to no end. I created a podcast called This Could Be Us, which you keep voting Republican, because I was afraid and I wanted to reach out to people and give them information and remind them how important the arts are. And so, yeah, the arts are important. All of us have been relying on the arts to keep us sane as we have been quarantined and isolated from one another. And so my question is this: what do you plan to do to make sure that you can get your agenda accomplished to support the arts? The arts in that we need money, we need funding for theater companies, we need funding for people who rent or that rent theater space, performance spaces. We need funding for individual artists like myself, because there are no jobs out there for us to go get right now. And so I would like to know, how are you going to get through the roadblocks that are going to be put before you because you're trying to support the arts? The opposition find the arts to be useless, and that's not true. So how are you going to beat the opposition? That's my question. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Yolanda. Sentiments and realities that many of us doing indie theater really can identify with. So candidates, there's a lot in that question. We're going to give everyone only 90 seconds, however. So you get 90 seconds for your response. A reminder, we will be keeping track of time, and our technician will be free to use the mute button if you go beyond that. So when your time's up, we will mute you and we'll move on to the next panelist. We're going to start with April Samboun.
Yes, great question. Thank you so much. You know, I'm a mom to 2 kids, and one of my son is in public school, and we are a family of My husband is, I would say, a great artist, and my brother-in-law is also a painter. I love the arts, and that's something that is woven throughout my children's lives and ours. And how am I going to beat the opposition is by listening and working damn hard to make sure that the arts are available in schools and for the public. In my professional career, as a marketing and communication strategist, I have worked with multiple companies to create multi-million-dollar partnerships in the education sector. I was at Scholastic for years, and I understand what it takes to be at the table and to negotiate and ensure that programs that benefit our communities, our families, our pro-social programs are there. And that is working with all parties. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Brandon West.
Great, thank you. So I have a very deep connection to the arts. I started a classical music club in high school, so that's how nerdy I can get on this. But I do think the 39th is a district that does have a lot of independently owned spaces, and I think that we talk about like the Green New Deal and talk about New Deal for CUNY. Like, let's just think about what the New Deal was. It was the government focusing and making sure that industries didn't fall off the face of the earth. So I think that what we can do, especially with the need to using open spaces with open streets, is like the city needs to put money into supporting artists in order to be able to use the space, using public space to practice, using public space to do events, but then also have entertainment for people for the vast variety of age groups throughout the summer. People are going to be out this summer, and who knows in terms of like how often the pandemic may change, in the next 6 to 9 months. So this is a great opportunity for proof of concept to be able to say that this is something that we can do, and this has a very large benefit. So I think that that's something that I will push for and try and support. But also, there's a lot of really great beloved venues in the district that have struggled. I, was involved in trying to help Barbez stay open, which is like a venue space that's loved within the district. So I think this is the kind of example of what we need to do. But we also need to cancel rent for commercial spaces and for independent theaters, not just for residential. And I think some of these bigger policies that are talked about in terms of expanding healthcare and expanding access do impact the workers that are part of these ministries as well. So.
Excellent. Thank you. And I love Barbez. Brandon, that was Brandon. Crystal Hudson.
So my district, the 35th district, is home to Brooklyn's cultural district. And so I will absolutely do everything in my power to ensure that the industry can come back bigger and better than ever. But doing that includes building coalitions with colleagues, which I have done and will continue to do, to ensure that I'm telling the stories of those in the cultural industry and the performing arts industry, and to make sure I am advocating, right alongside each and every one of you, and that, your stories are being told. And that's how I will absolutely advocate for the funding, the resources, and everything else that's needed to get us back up and running. Thank you.
Thank you. Lincoln.
Great. Thanks, Robert. Excuse me. New York City will be back when the arts are back. Not just tourism, which is obviously critical to our economy, but the many hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers who have departed the 5 boroughs will be back here when the arts are going strong. So we need to do everything we can through the remainder of this pandemic to help stabilize folks in the arts who are struggling to get by, help to make sure that they have food security, help to make sure that they are getting the unemployment that they need, help to make sure that their rent has been canceled and that they can stably stay in their homes. We need to do all of that and more. And now, as we're beginning to see the light at the end of this tunnel, we need to do everything we can to actually support the arts to come back in full force. We need to support open culture initiatives and dedicate every different corner of public space that we can to bring in the arts back into our neighborhoods. And we need to think about how to boost the arts back in theaters around the city and do it smartly and do it safely as people are getting vaccinated, make sure that these spaces are being fully utilized. And as a council candidate, and if I'm lucky enough as a council member, I'll be the biggest booster for every independent theater and cultural institution across the 33rd, and encouraging our neighbors to take advantage of them at every opportunity in turn. Thank you.
Thank you. Shahana.
Thank you. So I'll just start off by saying that the arts saved me and countless young women and girls living in the 39th district, particularly in Kensington. We fought for the creation of Avenue C Plaza, which has been a center of arts and resistance. And so the open culture bill is critical for me. It's historic, innovative, and a pathway to restore the culture sector. And this should be permanent and expanded. And by permanent, I mean, we've got to make sure that the streets aren't privatized, that we're not charging artists artist fees to use the streets. And so we've got to make sure that we're expanding and opening up more streets, not just the streets that are part of the Open Streets program, that our plazas are accessible and our hubs for music, dance, performances to really combat the pains of the pandemic. And my campaign is centered on care and joy, and this program does exactly that. The city should be buying tickets by providing schools, community groups, the opportunities to go out and to see live performances. We've got to make sure that we're consistently paying artists to perform, and that when community groups are unable to buy tickets, that the city is paying off the fees through grants. We've of course got to restore funding for arts education. We saw that arts education was slashed first. So really bringing back our teaching artists and creating equitable programming across communities of color, working class communities across New York City. And then of course, advertising. We know that
Thank you so much. We've run out of time. We're gonna move on to Rita.
Good evening. Thank you so much. As an educator, I would love to support, make sure that all my theaters have ready to go open back up, have their PPEs, have healthcare, make sure that we allocate funds. I'm looking to, when get elected, to at least increase the fund to $10 million. And of course, working with my partners, building the coalition from the ground now, not when I get into city council. So I look forward to working with my future council members in making sure that the art is represented and art has played a big role in my life, and make sure that I transfer that into the district that I plan to represent into the public schools. So I agree with a lot of my colleagues who are also saying that. So we need to make sure that it doesn't go away, it stays here, and we make sure that we fund it and fund it properly. Not the first to be cut, but the most to be funded.
Amen to that. Darma.
Hi, as someone that benefited from chorus and art classes, my educational years, I made it my business while participating in developing schools in my district to make sure that we have art studios. As currently while being in the council, I've secured funding for independent programming and for also for schools, even though through the pandemic, when they were not going to be have it on site, to be able to afford them the possibility to do it remotely, and that's been successful. In reference to open space, there's 3 plazas in my district. One plaza I co-founded, and prior to coming as a member, I ensured that we had open spaces for artists to participate in at all levels, our youth and our seniors. And a friend of mine reminded me that I've been supporting a local drama for the last 33 years at the YMCA, which definitely has involved the nuts and bolts of it all. Art is important to me. As coming on to the council, I'm a member of 10 committees and 3 caucuses, and it was important to me for the arts and culture to be one of them. My long-term goal is to be able to open a museum within my district that would also be a hub for artists. And the 37 Councilmatic District, we're definitely starving for art and culture, and that's what I bring to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Justin.
Thanks so much. I want to thank the League of Independent Theaters just for having us all. We're your 5th act tonight. This is, at the Tank, we often had early show and a late show. So I'm really appreciative you all stuck around for the late show. I'm so delighted also to be here because I'm one of the founders of the Tank. The Tank is a member of the League of Independent Theaters. For 18 years, we've been presenting new work by emerging artists across discipline. We've been removing the financial barriers to create new work, to enjoy new work, and we produce and premiere more new work across theater, film, comedy, dance, mixed media, poetry, puppetry than any other venue in New York City. I was one of the founders. I don't program it now. We have a great team that does that. We've been able to expand the team over the years. I remain the board chair. In addition to expanding the team, we've been able to compensate artists more and more. I talk about all of this because this conversation is in my blood, is in my DNA, is the work I've been doing for 18 years. And because the question wasn't just asking what we're going to do, but how we're going to do it. How the tank has survived for 18 years is by navigating with partners, figuring out how to use the innovation of artists, build coalitions, navigate real estate, which is a real challenge in New York City, and build those partnerships that you would need to have. In addition to the tank, my professional work is with Move On, building big campaigns on the national level, around healthcare, around the relief bills we're seeing now. I want to take the big campaigning of Move On, the focus in arts and culture, the experience building organizations, leading coalitions, and use that that was my 90-second timer, to help deliver the kind of results that we know artists need, because arts and recovery go hand in hand. And I've written several op-eds around this. If you look at justin2021.org, you can see my vision for what that recovery looks like.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Keeping track of your own time. I appreciate it. And Elizabeth.
Hi, thanks. So now is the time to get creative and to be responsive about how we address our needs in new and adaptive ways. So a few things. One, I think we can use our vacant storefronts, our city-owned empty lots for performances, for temporary art installations, open streets and open culture. The open culture program has been a really exciting opportunity of how we do this. I worked with a lot of community partners and neighbors in identifying open culture streets and ways that we could bring this program to the neighborhood that could support artists and community members and think about how it worked in practice. And then I'm really inspired by the Design for Public Trust L-Space toolkit to think about how we identify places under bridges, places that we haven't used before, or for free performances for creative open space, public space opportunities. In terms of the point of the political question, I plan on achieving these wins through collaboration, through co-governance, and cutting through red tape. So I'm a big supporter of a director of the public realm, where we have a central hub for how to move projects through, how to get approval processes done, and not have things get stuck. This mayor has siloed projects and issues over and over again, and I think what we need is more seamless processes, especially in terms of art and performance. And then New York City needs to be a job creator here. I think we need to look at creating a works project administration for our arts. We need to be investing in performance, investing in our cultural spaces and well-being. You know, this is about our city's growth and as well as our emotional well-being and the things that keep our communities going strong. So that is where we need to be focusing our energy and our priorities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I wanted to welcome now to the panel, Alexa Aviles. Welcome to the Brooklyn Late Night Show. And so we had asked you to please give us a little introduction of yourself. So let us know who you are, what district you're running in, and what's the 5-word answer as to why you're running. And we'll tack on that for your answer right here, an answer to the question. Sadly, you missed, it was a video question. But essentially the idea was from our Brooklyn-based artist by the name of Yolanda K. Wilkinson. The question, not only how are we going to get artists back to work and paid, but also how are you going to work with those who don't think that the arts matter? Essentially, how are you going to break through the roadblock of the idea that the arts are superfluous? You've got 90 seconds, Alexa. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alexa Aviles. I'm running in District 38, which is Sunset Park, Red Hook, and portions of Diker Heights, Windsor Terrace, and Borough Park. 90 seconds on the question. So, you know, as a parent, education justice is a huge part of our platform. Arts is central to education. It is not an enrichment. It is not extracurricular activities. It is central to who we are as humans. And so I'm a huge advocate of centering art as a core curriculum in our education. Also, in our community, we have many artists, many cultural forms, but we do not have many venues. And so supporting individual artists and supporting artists of color in our community that come from our cultures is really important, and providing spaces for them to practice their authentic art is something that is very critical for me and for our community. So equity in arts funding is a huge issue. I agree with many of the candidates who said utilizing our public space, utilizing all the vacant storefronts, controlling for rent, which has chased away many generations of artists from our community, is a huge issue. And I will say art is healing and art is culture. And in this time of trauma where our community has experienced so much profound trauma, art is going to play a critical role in that healing process, both for our mental, spiritual, and emotional health that I think we need to center and truly invest in. And lastly, I guess how we will do it is how we do all change, right? We will build movements, we will activate people. We have to culture shift around this question, right? And also we're just going to demand that things get centered, right? That our communities get centered, that art and funding gets centered, that policies change, and that we don't kill our communities by bureaucracy, right? And we see all this endless seams of bureaucratic nonsense that kills common sense and profoundly important things for.
And that's time. Sorry about that. Thank you so much. No worries. You'll be back. You'll have another question soon. Right now, we're going to hopefully get rid of the spotlight feature, and we're all going to be in a gallery view. Hopefully the tech works. And if not, I'm going to talk a little bit before we get there because we want to see everyone's reactions for this next question. I'll preamble and get us ready technically by vamping and saying one of my personal favorite indie theater productions I ever saw was in the basement of a restaurant in Park Slope. I have seen several shows in churches all across Brooklyn. I've seen several shows, several shows of the free Shakespeare that happens in Carroll Gardens every year, which is wonderful and always brings out a ton of people to this great park to see like random Shakespeare in the park, not the one at the Delacorte. It's amazing. Indie theater is innovative. We find ways to make our work and we use the spaces that we work in to our creative advantage. So how can we further open up opportunities for theater makers to overcome the huge roadblock we often encounter? And the one that a lot of you have brought up and we are going to be talking about a lot, finding affordable, accessible space in which we can work. So we're almost there. We're just getting everybody into the gallery here. But everyone, if you want to get prepared, warm up your thumbs. We're going to be doing a little thumbs up, thumbs down. Let us know, do you support this or do you not? With just your thumbs. I think we've got almost everyone. We're working.
Can only spotlight 9.
Oh, okay. Well, I think we can see everybody though. That's amazing. Or at least I can on my screen. So we'll start here. Do you support expanding access to the city's new open culture program? Thumbs up, thumbs up. That's what I like to see. Do you support making open culture permanent? Awesome. Do you support commercial rent stabilization? Awesome. Do you support the creation, somebody already brought this up. Do you support the creation of a director of the public realm to make public spaces more transparently accessible, not just to artists like us, but to all residents of the great city of New York? Lovely. That's what I like to see. All right, now we're going to get into some specific questions for everyone because Brooklyn is in the house and it's so well represented tonight. We have to keep this pretty short. So 60 seconds is all you're going to get here. Remember, we do have that mute button. After 60 seconds, we'll move on to the next candidate. We're going to start with Justin Krebs. So Justin, you've already alluded to the fact that you helped to start the tank. You've got something of a little bit of an advantage tonight. You were speaking to a Zoom room full of indie theater artists, and you've been in our room. You have to make one of our rooms. But you're also running for office. And it's something like, I don't know, I guess you can compare it to being on the other side of the table, as it were. So in our Imagine You're an Artist Calling a Politician exercise from our questionnaire, you responded, you'd ask them to, as you said, hear what we hear, but also what we offer. Amen. But let's flip that around for you, for your question. As an indie theater person, what do you have to offer the world of politics now that you want to be a member of council?
So Thanks for asking that. Since the beginning in 2003, the tank has been a hub of activism and resistance. And in 2004, anyone who was around during the RNC knows that we were actually a hub of the activism that was taking place in the protests that were taking place in the streets. The tank has always seen politics and social justice mixed with arts. And I know that many folks on this panel agree, and many folks who are on this call. So by being a space, independent artists, independent venues like ours, not only help create artists who go on from early in their career to actually becoming contributors economically in many different ways, becoming the professionals that you see on Broadway and Carnegie Hall and on TV, and all those middle range theaters in between, the off-Broadway professional circuit, all the concert venues. We give them a stage to do that. We also give them a stage to bring forward ideas and innovation that are going to influence the whole city. The tank has done that over the last 18 years, as have dozens and hundreds of other venues in the city, and that's why we need to support them. So if I were an independent theater board chair, which I am right now, thinking about how to bring that into political leadership, I would think about the ways that you tap into creativity, the connection of arts and resistance, culture and politics. It's been in our blood and our DNA as an organization. I would bring that forward in City Council.
Thank you so much. Next question is for Darma. Darma, you mentioned several times in your responses the knowledge gap between services and spaces that are available and the venues and artists that they are intended to help. How can you, as a member of council, help to close that gap for arts organizations and for artists in your district and across the city?
I think living by example. As someone that has benefit from personally being involved in art, I've used art for therapy, so that there's many levels, right? And I think it's seeing is believing. Living in the council, we've had many hearings. There's nothing like a member actually seeing the impact of the evolution of a child and an adult when they're able to transform into that natural space. So to me, it's bringing the artistic world in front of the council members that are easy to say, no, you don't need the funding. It's so easy to say no, and discredit. But when you're in someone's face and you're living their experience, it's a different conversation. So to me, it's about putting it in a member's face and say, no, it's not a necessity. To me, it is. Definitely, as someone mentioned earlier, during these times, being able to step out of our what become a social norm, art has done that for us. I know early on, you had someone perform. That was amazing. I didn't expect that. I was nervous and jittery after a 16-hour day to get that 3-minute stint. It was like, oh, okay, this is cool. And then you had cheesecake there. Who doesn't like cheesecake? I'm a big person on props. I love props. So thank you as well for making that conversation for us. You made it easy. Thank you.
Marco, making everybody feel at ease. That's what we like, not only entertaining us. Next question is for Alexa. Alexa, in the questionnaire, we asked candidates to pretend that they are someone working at an independent arts organization in their district, and then to tell us what they thought that their first call to insert hopeful elected office here would be. I love your response. You said you would call on my city council member to streamline access to public resources. There are so many publicly funded projects that leave out small and medium arts organizations. Heck yes. As a member of council, what could you do to ensure that indie arts organizations and artists are brought to the table and get a bigger piece of the pie?
I thought you were unmuting me. Sorry about that. So I think indie arts organizations should be part of streamlining the process and creating a new process, right? And how we can remove the barriers and the bureaucracies that leave them out, right? Both first, not even considering them because of the constraints around how policies and how contracts are already written. So really streamlining contracts, creating RFPs that are welcoming and accessible to all sizes, providing capacity, and just removing barriers. And so I think they have to be part of the decision-making process and the co-governance, honestly. So that's the way I would begin to address the issue.
Thank you so much. Next question is for Shahana. Shahana, we spent a lot of time tonight talking about expanding access to public spaces. And as you mentioned already, you've actually done this work, which is amazing. You helped to create the Avenue C Plaza in Kensington. And in your responses, you drew attention to the important component of equity when it comes to creating and expanding access to space. As Lit and everyone in this forum tonight works on this issue, how do we make sure that resources are available for cultural groups from all communities, especially those that are local to a space?
Thank you so much, Robert. The creation of Avenue C Plaza, and right after that, the incubation of the Kensington Cultural Council, which is a coalition of arts organizations, is exactly how I would approach this, because the Kensington Cultural Council is made up of our local immigrant-run organizations, women-led, youth-led organizations like the Bangladeshi Institute of Performing Arts, like Casa Cultura, like the Singing Winds, like Charu Konto. So making sure that programming is language accessible and providing the funding through small business services so that these organizations can come together, figure out language access and have the funding for that, because so often we rely on language access as a free service. And that can no longer be, because what we've seen through the last 3 summers of programming on Avenue C Plaza is young girls, Muslim girls, building friendships. It's where we've hosted self-defense workshops for young Muslim women in the face and in the wake of a Trump administration. It's because we've done the intentional outreach and have brought in these organizations. Young people want to be a part of this work. We've got to listen to them. We've got to listen to what the needs are of these organizations to adequately fund them, but also to expand funding annually. So we've got to push for an expansion of funding of the Department of Cultural Affairs and make sure that there's adequate funding, because what we saw through COVID is some of these organizations stopped working because they lost funding for the rest of the portion of the summer. And needed to cut staff. And that hurts me, that harms what kind of programming we can continue to do. So I will continue to be an advocate to center equity.
Run out of time. Thank you so much. Next question is for Brandon. Brandon, a lot of your responses focus on the crisis of affordable housing, as well as affordable performing arts spaces. And of course, rightfully so, as we've noted, that's kind of a theme for this evening. The 39th has seen great arts venues pop up, but at the same time, rent's going up at an impossible rate there, as it is everywhere. What would be your priorities as a member of council to combat this age-old problem of rising costs, pushing out established communities, whether artistic or simply residents of a neighborhood?
Totally. So I think this kind of goes into, it's a little wonky, but the whole like decommodification world. And I think it's very clear in the context of housing, but I think it's also clear in the context of, in other industries, commercial spaces in the arts, is that, if it's important, then it's not something that you commodify, i.e. having a few of that is beneficial for whoever owns the majority of it. So for housing, that's, if we want everyone to have housing, you need to just give housing to people. So I think in terms of physical spaces in the arts, it's about where the city steps up, with help from federal government, from other places, and just provides it. So that means providing, subsidizing spaces to make sure that they stay open, giving grants and partnerships to folks in order to be able to do that artwork. I think that is like incredibly important. And I think that is something that, if we're going to have a real just recovery and it centers folks who've taken the hits in terms of what's gone on, then we just have to make space for that. And that does cost money, but we have, a $90 to $100 billion budget, depending on the year. And I think this is something that we can carve out because I think there's an interest and a need for it. So I think that in terms of like housing, that means we make sure that we create open studio spaces in the district, especially in Gowanus, where there's a rezoning. But I think in terms of the arts, I think that's literally putting money where our mouth is and making sure that these spaces can survive and then be able to support them and cancel their rent where possible. And I think we'll be able to keep these industries alive in the District of 39 because yes, it's a high rent district. It's been very hard for a place to stay open.
Thank you so much. Next question is for Elizabeth. You've worked a lot with Councilmember Levin on commercial rent stabilization. You call for the utilization of city-owned lots and vacant storefronts as flex space for performance and art installations. And because you've done a lot of work in this realm with your time, please tell us, what is the most effective thing you could do, the most effective thing as Councilmember Adams to keep indie theater spaces alive and promote the creation of new indie theater spaces?
Yeah, I think number one, commercial rent regulation, starting with immediate relief right now for folks, but now is the time for commercial rent regulation. And the reason that I drafted that bill and worked with a council member so much on this issue was because this came out after months of conversations, hearing directly from small business owners, from people in art spaces, in music spaces, bars and restaurants, freelancers, who are saying that over and over again, rent is the #1 issue. And I think the importance of commercial rent is we need to think about how we provide stability at a time when we have so much instability in our city. The issues of commercial rent are unique from residential because we have to think about it from a public goods standpoint. If we want to be able to walk outside our apartment and have access to a music store, venues, pottery shop, bookstore, kitchenware store, all of the things that make up our goods and services and our neighbors, to have all of the things that we need for our well-being and for our communities, we have to think about it in a holistic sense and about what is in the good of our communities, not just what the highest bid can get away with, which is currently how our system operates. And so we have created a multinational market for our public space that is vehemently opposed to the interests of our communities, of our small businesses, of our families. And so now is actually the perfect time to enact rent regulation, because rents are starting to go down a little bit, and we can provide some stability now so that we have a reasonable allowable rate increase that will have long-term impacts. We have to think about getting out of
We've run out of time. Thank you so much. I love all the passion from everybody tonight. This is great. Lincoln, next question is for you. Tell us about lower NYC rent, your plan to do just that. How would it help to keep small arts venues in their spaces and also keep independent artists, from being displaced from their neighborhoods?
I really appreciate the question, Robert. We've experienced violent displacement across Brooklyn over the last 20 odd years. In Williamsburg and Greenpoint, we've lost 15,000 Latino residents in the last 15 years. The Black population in Brooklyn is shrinking for the first time since the Great Migration, because people are being violently forced out of their neighborhoods. And if we don't step up and take on the real estate industry and fight for and demand the affordable housing that we desperately, urgently need, the trends are going to continue. So at the beginning of this campaign, I put out an idea called Lower NYC Rent, and it would accomplish a few things. Firstly, it would shift the way that we begin to think about our housing stock, which is currently it is thought of as a commodity. And what we need to do is realize that housing is a human right. So when an apartment has been vacant for a period of months, with city law that the Department of Finance would track vacant, empty apartments, and with state regulation to regulate the housing market, we would actually force reductions in housing that has been vacant for extended periods of time to make it more affordable to working families. In the 33rd, one of the wealthiest districts in Brooklyn, still a quarter of tenants pay a majority of their income in rent. That is not right. It is not okay. We have to intervene. This is a plan to do just that. And similarly,
Amazing. Thank you so much. Next question is for April. April, in your response to our question about furthering access to public space for artists, you say that applying for permits should be turnkey and not onerous on the person seeking them. Boy, yes, do we agree with you on that. Indie artists, more often than not, do not have government affairs departments that can help us navigate the necessary arcana. So how can you, as a member of council, make that happen for us? Because yes, please.
Yeah, great question. Thank you so much. And for our economy to thrive, neighborhood businesses must prosper. That's why small businesses, and I consider you guys artists, small businesses, is a priority of mine as part of my contract with District 33. When I'm elected to City Council, I will support the Small Business Job Survival Act. I want to work with businesses and landlords and residents to facilitate meaningful outcomes that work for everyone. Ideas I believe that would gain traction and make a positive impact would include lowering property taxes across the board and lower commercial tax classifications for small retail and commercial spaces. With so many shuttered storefronts, we need to make it easier for people to open new businesses. One of the key is to restarting the city's economy. Instead of raising fees and taxes, we can make shifts in ways that we invest our tax dollars. I am committed to eliminating the red tape, such as the nuanced fees and the onerous processing times for starting a business. We need to eliminate incentives that distort the market in favor of larger businesses, stop the consolidation of commercial space by landlords that drive up rents, work with state leaders to pass commercial rent relief for businesses and retail storefronts that support the arts, and create open and pedestrian-friendly places that will invite the arts into our neighborhoods, and for people like myself and my family and others who don't have access to it to be able to enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is for Crystal. Crystal, you wrote, "There's no way that cultural institutions, large and small, can stay alive without real investment from the city." Sadly, that is very true. But while live performance spaces were the first to close and will be the last to reopen due to COVID, there's still no coherent plan from any corner of city government for how to keep our community alive after this crisis. We can't even get clear guidance on reopening safety guidelines. How would you, as a member of council, make the solvency of artists and art institutions a priority for the city government?
I think, like Lincoln said earlier, I think New York City doesn't really come back until the arts comes back. And so I think what we need to do is prioritize the health and safety of performers, as well as guests, people coming in to see performances. We need to make sure that we set up a space and spaces and a system where we can ensure safety, whether that means, rapid tests outside of a venue before people enter. There are many ways. I think also communication is key. Like you said, there's been a sore lack of communication across the board in the last year, from everything from education to theater to healthcare. We've seen a lack of communication from government to the public, and so that absolutely has to change. And I think the industry was also, to your point, I believe, Robert, one of the first to close and will be one of the last to reopen. And I think we need to, make sure that we are putting in some of the biggest investments into the arts and culture space, considering how long people have had to go without, a career, without.
We're out of time. Thank you so much for your response. Last question here is for Rita. Rita, you raise an important issue in your responses, and actually one that's been on the mind of Lit since our inception: landmarking arts venues. Heck yes, my friend. Beyond getting the landmark status, however, what would you do as a member of council to ensure that our current cornerstone venues, that they can thrive and produce the kind of innovative and necessary creative work that will get them to landmark status?
As I mentioned before, I will definitely work with my council members to make sure that we start early on to make sure that you are landmark. Theater is important. It's important. It's fair. So I would definitely support legislation to make sure that we are landmarked, and work with each and every one of these candidates to make sure that we do that. We start on the ground early by building coalition now. We don't wait till we get to City Hall to do that. Most of the time we wait till we get there. This is a new class going in, so we're gonna be bold and we're gonna be bodacious, and we're gonna make progressive moves in City Council for the arts. It's important because my students, 1 out of 8 of my students in my district live in shelters. So some of them don't have access to art. So I bring the art to them, and therefore if I can do this for them, it will benefit the whole city, the whole system, educational system.
Thank you so much for that response. Thank you so much to everyone for all of your responses. We are at time. I wish I could just keep talking about indie theater with all of you for the rest of the night, but You know, unfortunately, we do have some time constraints on these things. So thank you everyone for your time. This has been absolutely wonderful to have you all the panelists. This is kind of the wrap up thank you section of the evening. So if you don't feel like you want to leave your camera on and you need to pet your cat or dog or grab a snack, feel free to do so. But seriously, thank you to everyone on every single one of these panels here tonight for taking the time to respond to the needs and interests of the indie theater community. Just by being here, you show that you know our community is essential. The arts, indie theater, creative energy, it is all absolutely essential to keeping New York City alive. So thank you all for your commitment to addressing our issues. On behalf of LIT, we wish you all the best in your campaigns, and win, lose, or there's no draws in campaigns, so we'll say win, lose, or dropped in the last round of ranked choice vote tallying. We hope that you will stay in touch with us and that you will continue to advocate for the arts. Now, to those of you who are watching the participants list and or watching us later on the internets, indie theater community, thank you for watching us. As we've been saying all night, there is a link in the chat. That link will be there when you are watching this later as well. Check that link for you to go and share your thoughts on the candidates with us. Click the link, fill out the form. You must be a member of the League of Independent Theater to submit responses. So if you are not yet a member of LIT and you're watching this, you really should be a member of LIT. So sign up, it's litny.org/join, and we're gonna drop that link in the chat as well. Please fill it out, join us, and then submit your responses. A recording of this event, as I mentioned earlier, will be available for viewing later. If you want to review what you saw, you missed a panel, want to go back and watch it, or you've got friends who missed it tonight and you think that they should know more about the people who are vying to represent them in government, do share the link with them, spread it far and wide. Now, the thank you portion. Thank you, big thank yous. I want to just clap like crazy through all of this, but instead I'm going to give some snaps. Bria Clemens, our producer for the show, designer of the fabulous graphics that helped advertise it. Thank you, Jen Bobo, our technician for the show, keeping the Zoom running smooth. Thank you to Mariko the Clown for providing us with such amazing and lovely entertainment between panels. Seriously, y'all, just go back and watch the videos just so you can see all of Mariko's stuff, if we're allowed to post that. Thank you, Vince Morano, for your help with our press outreach. Thank you to Christina Perry for your help with our social media outreach. Thank you to Katie Palmer, Director of Communications for the League of Independent Theater, not only for all of your communicating, but also for hosting brilliantly one of our panels tonight. Thank you to Amy Todorov, our Managing Director, for all of your work putting this whole thing together and making it all happen, and for hosting 2 panels tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. My name is Robert. If you've got questions about how you as an indie theater artist can get more involved in the political process, talk to me. I'm LIT's Director of Election Engagement, and I will do my very best to help you find the answers. Stay informed, stay involved. Long live indie theater. Good night. Thank you all so much.